What if the United States, in a moment of sheer desperation, decided to nuke the moon? It sounds like the plot of a bad sci-fi movie, but in the late 1950s, it was a terrifyingly real proposal. At the height of the Cold War, with the world watching, the US government commissioned a top-secret plan to detonate a nuclear bomb on the lunar surface. But why would they even consider something so extreme? To understand the answer, we have to go back to the single event that pushed America to the brink. On October 4th, 1957, the world changed forever. The Soviet Union launched a 183-pound polished metal sphere into orbit. Its name was Sputnik. As it circled the Earth, it did almost nothing. It just beeped. A simple, steady pulse that anyone with a ham radio could hear from their backyard. But that sound was a profound shock to the American system. For a decade, Americans had lived with the comforting belief in their own technological supremacy. That simple beep was like hearing a burglar's footsteps in the upstairs of your own house. The sound itself isn't the threat, but it tells you something is deeply wrong, that all your defenses have been breached. The real fear wasn't the satellite. It was the powerful R-7 rocket that got it there. If the Soviets could put a satellite into orbit, what else could they do? They could launch a nuclear warhead and target any city in the United States. Suddenly, the missile gap wasn't a political theory. It was a horrifying reality, beeping its way across the American sky. How could the US possibly respond? Washington was scrambling for a dramatic comeback to prove its power was second to none. In 1958, senior Air Force officers approached physicist Leonard Rifle to lead a top-secret study on the feasibility of a nuclear explosion on the moon. To keep it hidden, the project was given the bland title A Study of Lunar Research Flights, or simply Project A119. Its real goal, however, was a raw show of force. The Air Force wanted a demonstration so colossal it would be visible from Earth, meant to reassure an anxious American public and unsettle the Kremlin in a single brilliant flash. Rifle's team was asked if a detonation could be scientifically useful, perhaps by creating moonquakes. But the Air Force cared more about one question: what would it look like from Earth? This is where they hit a problem. The iconic mushroom cloud is a product of Earth's atmosphere, a blast pushing through air and dragging up debris. The moon, however, is a near-perfect vacuum. An explosion there would be a flash in an empty void, with no air and no mushroom cloud. So how could you create a spectacle for the world to see? To understand the physics of an explosion in a vacuum, one of the project's senior scientists, Gerard Kuiper, suggested one of his doctoral students, a promising but unknown 24-year-old named Carl Sagan. Long before he guided us through the cosmos or warned of nuclear winter, Sagan's secret job was to do the math for a lunar nuclear strike. He had to calculate if a cloud of vaporized moon dust would expand and catch the sunlight in just the right way to be seen from Earth. For decades, the project remained completely buried. It only came to light in the 1990s when Sagan's biographer, reviewing old files, found the titles of two classified papers Sagan had written about lunar nuclear detonations. Once those titles were public, the project's leader, Leonard Rifle, came forward and confirmed the entire story. So, with the secret out, how exactly did they plan to do it? The details of Project A119 show how seriously it was taken. The weapon was a W-25 Warhead, a small 1.7 kiloton bomb, light enough for an ICBM to carry to the moon. Hitting a lunar target with 1950s technology was a challenge, but considered feasible. Their solution to the no mushroom cloud problem was clever. The plan was to detonate the bomb not on the bright side of the moon, but just over the edge, on the dark side of the Terminator, the line separating moon day and night. The blast would kick up a massive cloud of dust, which would rise out of the darkness and into direct sunlight. From Earth, you wouldn't see a mushroom cloud. Instead, you'd see the debris suddenly ignite, like glitter against a black curtain. The plan was in place, so why didn't it happen? Project A119 was abruptly canceled in January 1959. First, the risk of failure was catastrophic. A rocket falling back to Earth could trigger a nuclear war. The technology wasn't reliable enough. Second, the public backlash from militarizing the heavens would have been a propaganda nightmare. Third, scientists like Sagan were concerned about irreversible radioactive contamination, likening it to destroying a priceless book before it could be read. But the biggest reason for cancellation was that a better idea was taking hold. Why send a weapon when you could send a person? The debate was over. Landing a man on the moon and bringing him home safely would be an infinitely more powerful demonstration than a flash of light. It would be an act of exploration, not aggression. The space race would be won with a footprint, not a flash. But the story has a chilling twist. Years later, it was revealed the Soviet Union had a nearly identical plan, codenamed Project E4. It was as if two rivals independently devised the same risky move, and for the same reasons, both decided against it. A stark illustration of the Cold War mindset.